Check on the markets across the region, starting with the BRVM. The BRVM 10 index closed trading on Friday at 235 points. That's up almost 2%. And while the BRVM composite was up 1.6% to 210 points. And total value traded on the day was really dropped to 122 million CFA francs. The currency currently trading at 513 to the US dollar. And let's move on to Ghana. In Accra, we saw the GSE composite index close at 1,884 points, down just under 0.2%, while that takes its year-to-date change to 57.1%. The GSE financial stock index, however, was up only marginally to 1,606 points. The year-to-date change for that index is 54.5%, and the currency steady at 2.04 to the US dollar. And moving on to Nigeria, we did see the NSE All Share Index up 1.1% to 36,924 points. It gained 2.2% for the week, and for the year, it's now up 31.5%. The gainers on the day included CAP, Forte Oil, Wapik Insurance, and Portland Paints. Of course, Portland Paints did do a deal with an acquisition deal, which we will discuss at some point during the interview today. Now joining us in the studio today is Akinola Jones, Head of Financial Advisory at Primera Africa. Thank you so much, Akinola, for joining us. And we'll be talking a lot about M&A, but let's first of all get your thoughts on the recovery we saw in the market last week, up 2.2%. At some point, I think people were getting a little scared that this market was ready to start one major downtrend, but I think a lot of people are relieved that it's stabilized a little bit. But what's your outlook for the market?
It's positive. We saw swings last week, but towards the end of the week, we saw a positive trajectory. We've seen significant buy interest coming on the banking space and industrial space. We've seen positive feedback from the acquisition that took place, UAC, and acquiring Portland Paints.
Right.
So we've seen that affect the market positively.
Right.
We've seen it affect CAP PLC's stock price,
right.
Doing a 9.9% day-on-day swing, and so that's, we're seeing a very positive outlook on that end.
Right.
Significant buy interests.
Yeah, I guess M&A is something that really could get the markets excited, and we saw deals last year. Of course, Tiger Brands getting involved in Dangote Flour. Now UAC, of course, has been doing a lot of deals. This is probably the third one that I can recall now. So your thoughts about the outlook for M&A? We've seen another very interesting transaction with Afren, which is listed on the LSE, doing a deal to acquire more shares in First Hydrocarbon. Yeah. So your outlook for M&A going forward?
Yeah, if we look back to 2011, we saw the CEO of UAC, Larietta, say that the 9.5 billion they made from the sale of a stake in the food and beverage business was going to be used towards M&A. In the last 2 years, we've seen the company partaking roughly, 4 M&A deals. We saw them divest from MDS Logistics. We saw a 51% acquisition of Portland Paints.
Right.
We've also seen livestock fees transactions in the works. Also in the oil and gas space, where there are a lot of deals brewing. In the last 5 years, we've seen over $2 billion of activity in the oil and gas space. So we saw First Hydrocarbon sell its stake to Afren for roughly $105 million, and there's also a put call option on that to even acquire another additional 12.5%.
Right.
So FMCG is also very key. We're going to see a lot of activity in the full-scale manufacturing space. A lot of foreign firms are definitely showing continuous interest in that, and the second half is very positive.
Right.
This is going to affect the market in a very positive way.
I just want to get your thoughts on how it will impact the market. Of course, since UAC is listed, Livestock Feed is listed, we see the impact on their share prices. But of course, First Hydrocarbon is not listed. I think it's one of the companies that a lot of people are hoping to be on the market at some point, but it's not yet. Of course, Afren is listed, but not here. It's listed on the LSE. So looking at the market as it is, do you think these are going to lead to new listings, or is it just going to be a couple of companies that are already listed that will be involved in some of these transactions?
No, I think it will lead to more dual listings from some of these smaller shops that are, I heard,
particularly from the oil sector, you think?
Exactly. Seplat was looking at some sort of a dual listing. So it would definitely lead to some listings. We saw one do the ConocoPhillips deal, and that affected the market positively. So the companies can't just feel that it's just the LSE that can benefit their firms. The NSE definitely has a lot to offer in terms of a good local investor base, and the market is showing continuous appreciation. One of the top performers performing markets in Africa and the world, outperforming a lot of the indexes right now.
No, I think you make a very good point. The market is doing well. I think the appetite for investing in oil and gas is very strong because we just don't have them listed. So it makes a lot of sense for many of these companies to come here, but then some may argue that people that understand these transactions are probably seen more offshore. I mean, that's another argument because the oil and gas space is a little more complex than buying your regular FMCG.
There's a lot of offshore activity, that's expected in the near future. But there are a couple of issues. The PIB, as we all know, there's corruption, and there's a lot of politicization of the oil and gas industry. So, that's deterring a lot of the major IOCs from looking at those offshore investments. We've seen, we've even had meetings with people from China. We're seeing continuous interest and activity from Asia to acquire a lot of our oil and gas assets. So
I was just going to get to that. Where are we likely to see investors coming from? You just mentioned China. Nigeria's president is in China this week, so clearly there's going to be a lot more collaboration with that country. So
there's a lot of dry powder. There's a lot of dry powder in Asia. There's a lot of dry powder in China. The West better look out because they're coming in, and they're coming in heavy. They're ready to make serious acquisitions. They're looking for serious assets. We're going to hear a lot more news headlines, news clippings of them making some serious acquisitions in the near future. And I'm not saying a year from now. I'm saying next 2, 3, 6 months. A lot of acquisitions in play. So.
And I always like to talk about this, the IPO market. What's your take where we are now? You think it's likely to happen this year still?
I know what I always say. I say this year is business development. This year is preparing the framework, preparing all regulatory procedures, showing the market, showing the investors confidence in the markets. And at the end of this year, I project personally roughly 40% returns on the market. So you show that to prospective investors or prospective people who are coming in to list, and that's a good story. That's a good story for us, the advisors who go out and tell our clients that say this is the trajectory. If you had come in at this point, this is what you'd be doing.
But isn't this the right time? Look at where the valuations of some of these FMCG companies are now.
There's
a no-brainer.
There's undervaluation, slight undervaluation.
You think
in some of the companies, not all of the companies. But we still have to prove a case. There's been. If you go back to 2008, 2009, we had this kind of surge. People need to see that confidence. People need to see that all the structures are in place.
So when they list, another 6 months, you think?
Exactly. So when they list, everything's in place, and we're going to prove it. The market's going to show it. So we're excited.
What about in the banking space, though? Of course, we know that Sterling Bank is doing a rights issue right now. Your thoughts about transactions in that space?
The banking space is mainly the nationalized banks. We're looking at the likes of Main Street Enterprise. We're going to see transactions there.
This year, you think? Because they have already said, AMCON has said that they will start with Enterprise. And after that, maybe sometime next year, we'll see other deals. So you think we'll see an Enterprise deal this year?
There's an Enterprise deal, of course, in the works. So we project the next Enterprise deal this year, Main Street early next year. There's a lot of interest in those banks. They have very strong, formidable structures, and they have good leadership guiding them to a point where they can be sold at a premium right now.
And of course, they have turned around because they're all making profits now.
So we're very excited, as I always say.